Okay, all set.
Okay, Lisa.
All right, I call this meeting to order. Do I need a second for that? Okay. First, an approval of the agenda that was emailed to us all as a Google Doc. May I have? What am I looking for?
This is Lissa. I move that we approve the agenda.
A second?
Katie, I second.
All in favor? Say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Next, to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was 9:15.
It was September 17th, and the minutes, or what, I'm sorry, it was the 15th. The minutes were linked in the agenda. So let's just take a minute for everybody to go and look through that, because I just linked them the other day. So I don't know if you caught it in the agenda, but take a minute, please, and go look over that.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
And if anybody has comments or criticisms, I'm happy to take them. This is my first time ever doing it, so.
I'm trying to just get mine to load. So it's not that I approve or don't approve. It's like
You can,
still
and in that case, you can always abstain from that. And Catherine, thank you very much, Katie, for doing that. And I know that's, once you get the first one out, the rest of them will be easy. Did we have a motion to approve yet?
This is Lissa. I'll approve to receive the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second, Katie.
Sarah, have you had a chance to look it over?
I still can't get it to load. I don't know what's going on because my internet's working fine. So I'll just close it and try and open it again.
Can I intercede and ask if anyone else is having difficulties?
It may just be your pop-up, Sarah, if you're clicking it within the link. If you've got a pop-up blocker that's, you now know everything I know about computers.
Okay, hold on.
Sarah, she can abstain.
I'll
and-
abstain.
Yeah, and then you can come
there
back.
we go.
Okay,
I see
perfect.
it. And I don't know what to say. I approve, second that. I don't know what to say, but looks good.
Give yourself 30 seconds just to make sure your memory of the conversation is what shows on the
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah. Yes. I approve.
Okay, so Katie motioned, and who was the second? No, Lissa motioned. Who was the second?
Katie.
Katie's the second. All those in favor wave or say aye. We've not heard from Maggie or Catherine D.
Sorry, I say aye. I didn't know I had to approve my own minutes. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Maggie?
Lisa, Maggie's not on the committee. She's our communications running the YouTube.
Okay, thank you. All right. Then we have approved the minutes. Holly, do we have any public input today?
There was no public input.
Okay, we move on to item 5, discussion, general counsel response. Can you fill us in what that means, Holly?
Sure. So you guys, everybody on this committee saw the letter that our chair, Bonnie Cleveland, who's not here tonight, wrote in response to the discussion we had based on the occurrence that happened at Camp Road of the teacher allowing the students to read the article from the Choices magazine, which the school had a subscription to, that was on transgender, and the story of the student and his tribes and tribulations of growing up that way and being bullied and what that meant to him. But after that, there was a response that came back, and I do believe Bonnie shared that with the entire committee. Is that correct? Did everybody read the response?
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And so Bonnie asked to have an open discussion from the response and get your ideas. And I do believe potentially she, from the email chain, that Bonnie would like, or Mercedes is the general counsel. And so she offered to, to meet with the chair and vice chair if there was more further discussion that was needed. So right now that would be open to you guys as a committee to have that discussion.
I'd like to start the discussion just by recalling that it seemed like what we were originally trying to point out, that sexuality and identity are not synonymous, wasn't going to be considered an issue to make something like this not have to go through the health class with parent approval and parents having the option to keep their child from that class. Is that how you all interpreted the letter as well and remember the letter?
Yes. Yes, sorry, couldn't find.
One thing that might come out of this interaction, though, like I said, part of it just feels like it's closed. But one thing that might come out of this interaction is having the staff go through some sort of training this calendar or this academic year having to do with sex, gender, sexuality, intersectionality, and having someone outside the district who's very well versed and an expert in this field come and give a presentation. And I don't know if that would prevent this exact thing from happening again, but it can't hurt to have people fully knowledgeable about sexuality and identity not necessarily being synonymous. Thoughts?
The last time we met, we talked about the possibility of a group that I'm not familiar with, AFA, doing a training.
Mm-hmm.
How could we help facilitate that happening? Is that our role? Would we just make that suggestion?
That is a good question. AFFA, by the way, AFFA stands for Alliance for Full Acceptance. They're the oldest LGBTQ focused civil rights nonprofit in the state of South Carolina, and they're here in Charleston. Holly, would that be our recommendation to make?
Yeah, so as a committee, you guys could make that recommendation as far as a training, potential training, or if not AFA, if someone would come in and train the staff. And I think that would be important because it is important for all our staff to be knowledgeable about all sensitive issues that fall possibly within all curriculums, and how to handle those sensitive issues when they do become a topic or a discussion within the classroom, so that teachers don't go beyond their parameters that they should. And going back to, I've been fine tuning the law, and even with conversation with upper level leaders based on gender identity, and does it or does it not actually fall into our standards, because there's not a student outcome that ever mentions it. So if this is presented potentially like this teacher did, does it? But when you look at the overall standards of health, one of the key words is in growth and development is the physiology part of the human development. And if you had to pick a place where gender identity would fall, that's where it's going to fall. And that falls under the health and safety standards for South Carolina. You're not going to see that anywhere else in any other standards. So I think that's why obviously that's where it's going to fall in the health curriculum. But regardless, no matter what is used as far as materials and curriculum, it still has to come across this committee before it gets into any classroom. But so going back, yes. So training, providing any guidance for teachers, I think everybody would be accepting to that, because that's definitely where we are right now. And it's important for our teachers to have that knowledge, no matter what the topic is. If it's sensitive within somebody's family values, we need to know as teachers and staff and faculty how to handle those and respond to that when it does come up. So I think that's definitely an open option as a recommendation coming from this committee that we could push forward.
And just to clarify, this would be the teacher in-service training type thing, as opposed to something optional they could do outside of the school year. How might that look actually getting
it would
done?
So at that point, if something was approved, it would then fall into professional development, and then that's how it would be laid out. So I don't make that decision. So if it was going to be a full wide school development, so yes, there would be some form of training that all teachers would have to take, whether it was in person or an online course, or if it was specific school to school. That would, I can't speak to that specific because that's not my job. But in my mind, that's what that would look like.
Okay. And if anybody can't guess what I was trying to get at there, I just didn't want this to be something optional that teachers who are already quite compassionate and quite knowledgeable would volunteer for. And I would like to think there are very few teachers, if any, maybe, who would be very against this kind of training. I just think it would need to be a district-wide training.
And I also think a training like this is also meant to allow staff to understand the importance of not presenting their own bias in these conversations, and being open to all perspectives of their students, and how to be responsive of those conversations that does not put their own personal opinion on that. And that's what's really important, to make sure that all students feel safe and accepted at all times, no matter what the teacher's opinion is. And so that is an important training. And that's really hard as humans, and to figure out that zone when you're having conversations with a huge group of diverse students that might be in one classroom.
I have a follow-up question. So were the means by which the assignment was administered determined? Because it sort of like appears that maybe the substitute wasn't aware that the assignment needed approval, or just like, I'm not entirely sure how it was administered when in fact it went against some of like the bylaws.
Well, it wasn't the substitute's decision that when the teacher leaves a plan, the substitute follows it. So the substitute had nothing to do with any of what happened. And
So it was predetermined that it would be administered by the teacher.
for sure, yeah, but
Okay.
from the classroom teacher. And again, I don't think we need to have a conversation about it. I just, it was a mistake, and there wasn't a lot of thought behind the lesson plan. And unfortunately, what was given didn't come across this committee to ever see for approval.
So for my understanding is that Mercedes was offering to meet just to discuss the the area of that she was able to define gender identity within the umbrella of homosexuality, because I think that's the kind of confusion between some members of committee, including me, and maybe the way that she's trying to explain the law, because she specifically mentions in that last paragraph second to last paragraph, that object to a discussion of homosexuality in the classroom must be protected. The rights of parents, teachers, and children and administrators who object to a discussion of homosexuality in the classroom must be protected.
So what she means by protected is they need to know that that's going to happen ahead of time so that they can have the opportunity to opt that child out before that discussion happens. So
Right.
yeah.
But that is still talking about homosexuality, but gender identity is not homosexuality.
Correct. Right.
So that's why I guess there's still a little confusion. I don't know if it would be helpful to have a meeting just to clarify that identity. I mean, there's so many types of identity. People identify by religion, people identify by language, people identify by what country they came from, people identify, there's so many different kind of classifications of identification that gender isn't, like, why is that one picked to be part of homosexuality when it's just another piece of a human?
Right. But again, going back to where it was, they placed it under the physiology development, when you're in the growth and development and how the body matures and whether you're male or female, that's where the gender would fall. And because all of that growth and development falls within health education, that's why it would fall under our subject area versus identifying as, I'm a Protestant or I'm Muslim, or anything like that. That's a whole nother content area that doesn't have anything to do with health education.
And Katie, maybe it helps to think of health education being so broad that it does include homosexuality, and it does include, they say, gender identity, but it is concerning that in the letter from legal counsel, homosexuality and gender identity were combined in that way.
Yeah, and that's my question is, if the council is not understanding what gender identity is, if they're grouping it as or defining it as homosexuality, then maybe they're not understanding our question, and it might be worth having a conversation about that. Because maybe if there's no understanding of what gender identity is, then how can CCSD council really give us good information?
But if that is an ask of the committee, that's something that can be moved forward, where general counsel can meet with the chair and vice chair for further clarification.
If they're saying that gender identity would fall under our curriculum in the physiology part, are all aspects of the physiology of that section of curriculum, are all of those subject to parent approval? Like, just because it's in our curriculum, I don't think everything in our curriculum is sent out to the parents to see if they want to exempt their kids. So I feel like what Katie might be saying is not that just that they're saying that it applies to us, but that it applies to the homosexuality laws regarding like parent approval.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the best I can answer this for you, Penn, is that when that topic of homosexuality comes up within the health education or gender identity, it's only going to come up within the growth and development unit. It's not going to come up in alcohol and drugs. We're not going to talk about it in nutrition. So because it falls within that unit, and that unit by law requires parents to have transparency to see everything that all lessons, and also give them the option to opt out of any of those lessons. That's where this issue is. And that's why it falls under the part of the law that allows that to happen. I don't know how best to explain that, but I know as a past health teacher of 18 years that these topics would not come up ever in any other unit. Because when we're talking about physiology and we're talking about how the body works, and then we start talking about sexually transmitted diseases and we talk about fertilization and pregnancies, kids have lots of questions, and they are curious about lifestyles outside of heterosexuality. How does that work? And so the biggest thing is that change in the law that allows teachers to answer those questions without having fear of getting fired. But obviously we're now in a part of society where everything, there's more and more stuff coming out, and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to make sure all our students are getting the proper education that they deserve, without going beyond the parameters of what the law says we can and cannot do.
Right. We've talked in several different directions. I think they're all fascinating, and I would like some conversation to happen with our legal counsel, because I'm concerned, like Katie, that I understand where it falls in and why it falls in. That I got. The part that I'm a little uncomfortable, I'm really uncomfortable, is that legal counsel doesn't understand the terminology and the differences, and that's expressed in the letter. And I think that's probably part of growth. And if you've not been involved in conversations, you may not understand why they're separate and why it's important to separate them. The same letter could have been written with the same outcome, but for legal counsel not to use the terms appropriately, I think is something we need to just do a check-in. And I would say that a lot of what happens just with the laity of regular parents and students is a lot of it is ignorance. They just don't know that they don't know. And so every little helpful, healthy conversation we can have in good space continues to put good information out. And that ripple effect hopefully will continue to help other people to get us to a place where it's not all under one little umbrella, that it's got a couple of different sections. But I think we've got to kind of do education and offer these educational opportunities to faculty and staff, and to legal counsel, and even to parents as they're signing the form. When that form comes out every year, it is a hot mess on social media. Did you see what they're teaching our kids? And hopefully all of us who are, involved are looping back in some one-on-one conversation with our friends to say, hey, wait a minute. Have you talked to your kids about this? Because they're gonna, in a great way. Anyway, I think the legal counsel conversation needs to happen. So we don't need to vote to have legal counsel. We just say, let's just do it. Okay, let's just do it. I think.
I mean, we can vote just to keep it proper, but it's not an action item. It's just a discussion, information, and this is it's a recommendation that we want to push forward. But thank you, Lisa, and I definitely agree with that. And I do want to say how many times parents reach out, not to opt their kids out, but hey, I want to look at the lessons because I'm not sure I agree with it. And when the lessons are sent by myself or another teacher at a school, and they're like, wow, these are actually really good lessons, thank you. And they opt their kids back in. So, having parents take a deeper dive into what the actual approved lessons are and not what they think of a curriculum, or, because, even our advocates for youth goes beyond the parameters of what we're allowed to teach, but we don't use those lessons. We only use the ones that were approved by this committee and by the Board of Trustees that actually stays within the alignment of the state law. And people don't realize that. So if they actually take the time to look, and everything is posted on the CCSD Comprehensive Health Plan, which is on the home website. It's on our CCSD Health and PE website. Everything's available. So it's a quick link, a quick email. Here's everything that you need. Look at it. And then they can make the decision on their own. But I agree, like those conversations, are you talking to your kids at home? These are conversations, because, we're not giving them the information. Google will, and Google's not always correct.
So clearly we have two intertwined but separate issues here about chair and vice chair meeting with legal counsel and setting something up, right? And proceeding with that. But then also, and I don't, like you said, we don't have to necessarily have a vote on that, but it would be nice to know how the group feels. But then the separate thing is a staff training in the new year, but in this academic year, from an outside source about identity, orientation, etc., for staff. Can we vote on those? Okay, let's start with the one that involves myself and Bonnie and legal counsel sitting down and going over what we're talking about based on the letter that was sent to legal counsel and the letter we received from legal counsel. Any further discussion on that? Do I have a motion to support this meeting getting set up?
Motion.
Lissa. And do I have a second?
Yeah, Michelle.
Great. All those in favor nod or say aye, or raise your hand or thumbs up. Good. All right. So a separate issue is, do we have any further discussion on staff training, focusing on identity and orientation? Do I have a motion to have Bonnie and I craft a letter recommending that this training occur?
So moved.
That was Lissa. And do I have a second?
I'll second, Sarah.
All those in favor, nod, wave, thumbs up. Any opposed? All right, both of those things are unanimous. I think that ends discussion point 1, and we move on to updates with the itinerant health team.
So that would be me. Yeah, so we're moving along at a very slow pace with the itinerant teachers. So we have a teacher coming, and hopefully her first start date will be in early December. We already have some middle schools pointed out for high priority, and we're going to start strictly with middle school, getting into those schools and teaching the growth and development. Logistically, it's, we're figuring that out and working it out, but I'm super excited. In hindsight, the slow start, might be better for us because we can kind of tweak out some of these details. But once we have the whole team, and I'm confident that in August we'll have 6, the whole team, and then we can start doing community meetings at specific locations for the schools, let the parents come in, see what we're teaching, answer any questions before we actually start. And then move on from there. But right now we just have one, and the teacher that's coming, she's fabulous. But if y'all know anybody who is health education certified and has had experience teaching health, please send them our way. I'm gonna start posting this nationally again. But it was just bad timing of the year. But as the second semester moves on and then we start posting for next year, people will see that. And I think we'll definitely get some more movement. Posting it in September is not the easiest way to hire teachers when everybody's got their job. So next on the list, I believe, I had the Aaron's Law, just implementation. And okay, question.
Is this a full-time position?
Yeah, it's a teacher position. Yes.
Times 6. Okay. And have you heard from any teachers thus far about who the itinerant folks will be replacing for this material, that they're excited that they're not going to be asked to teach human sexuality anymore? Or is there any pushback?
Everybody's just so excited. They're like, when are they coming? We need them. But, so some of our schools are still fabulous at this unit and they can run on autopilot. And so we're going to go to our priority schools first, who I know need them. I apologize for my dog. Stop. It's going to be a good thing. But quickly moving on with the Aaron's Law, October is Aaron's Law season, and that's when all of our schools should be implementing that. Sometimes it moves over into November, but some of you are new here. Hold on.
We just all got called by strategy and communication.
Okay, I apologize again. So if you are new to the committee, my suggestion is go to our health advisory website that you have the link to and click on the Aaron's Law curriculum, and please watch all the videos that was reviewed by the committee members before we have the new members on there, because it's important that you see what's on there, even though you weren't part of the approval process. But you need to know what the students are watching. And we use the Barbara Sinatra Foundation. We partnered with D. Norton, which is an organization local to us on child abuse safety, and they help train our elementary guidance counselors. But the program that we have is K all the way through 12th grade. I've been going into some schools and offering guidance training to the faculty, just the questions they need to look for. We review some of the videos, things they need to know, and the lesson plans. But it's super important. And, typically after it's done, we do have several students that, do ask for help after these lessons are presented. And that's why we do this, is we're saving children and protecting them. But so again, if you're new and you have not reviewed the videos, please do so, just so you're familiar with that, in case any community members want to ask you any questions about that. But after once we get back from Thanksgiving, all the schools should have completed that, and then we'll start all over again next year. And that's it. So those are the only updates that I have for you. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. We can open it up the floor to anything.
Other business?
It's kind of related to, well, it is Aaron's Law related. This might be a better question for the Barbara Sinatra Foundation, but I'm a school counselor, and so I do the Aaron's Law every year, and a big hurdle is just our ESOL students. So we usually have to get a district translator to come and gather all the ESOL students at the same time, and she'll translate while we're watching the video, and it's very tough with a schedule. Is there a Spanish version?
Yeah. So all the videos are linked there in Spanish too. So the document that I sent you, there's a Spanish link for all the videos.
I wish I knew that 2 years ago, but thanks. So much easier.
And the lesson plans are also in Spanish.
Let's tell ESOL people too, because they have been willingly coming, and I feel so terrible that all these translators keep having to come to my school for this.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't think I'm the only one, because they haven't said it. They haven't said I'm the only one. So
it might just be the way that the information's being distributed, because if it's the lesson plan that I created, it has the link for the Spanish version of everything.
Maybe that's what I need, because I just go on the.
Okay. So when you click on our website, you'll find it. You'll see it.
I don't have to deal with this conversation. Okay. That's all for me.
Other business, that's Aaron's Law. or not Aaron's Law related? I think that's it for tonight then. So
Sorry, I
go
have a
ahead.
question. Sorry, Lisa. In between meetings, since this is my first time on the committee, I don't really know what our responsibilities are in between meetings to like look for new material or research organizations, or like what can we be doing to help? Or I mean, I understand that we have set out some goals with each meeting, and it seems like we're moving forward each time, and that's awesome. I just want to know like what else we can do, what else we can do, what else we're is expected of us.
So, right, I'll answer unless Lisa, you want to give some information, but you're right, because new members is kind of slow right now, because in the past we have been evaluating curriculum and trying to get new stuff approved, but because we have a curriculum in place that has already been approved and we don't have anything up for approval, there's a 5-year mark on that. So that part of it is slow, which is nice because we can kind of focus on other goals and some of the needs that we need for our students. But I mean, I encourage you, everybody on this committee, if there is something that you feel is a priority and we're not talking about that thing as a committee member, that's your job to bring that forward. And if you run across something like this is really great curriculum and we've never even talked about it, bring it forward. That's something, that's why we're here. That's why all of you are on this committee, is to serve the students in Charleston County with what they need. So you're the open eyes in looking for stuff. So we don't have any set directives right now that you have to be working on, but you can easily just keep your eye open for anything. Or maybe you have your own priority and you're like, okay, I'm going to work on this, and then bring it forward to the committee. And then sometimes we do get stuff, it's rare, but some other community members will bring something forward. A teacher will bring something forward and say, hey, I really want to use this in my classroom. Can you guys review this? So we can, and we'll get that'll come across. But it's rare, and it used to happen a lot, but now that we have great stuff that you guys have approved for them, they don't bring stuff to us as often as they used to.
I'd like to chime in that if our next meeting is January 19th, I hope between now and then you will be getting an email from Bonnie about a draft of a letter suggesting that there be staff training related to LGBTQ issues. And so reading and giving feedback on that would be very welcome.
And I would suggest if Lisa, if you and Bonnie are doing that in between now and January, take that time. And then at the January meeting, you guys can vote on yes or no to send that letter forward.
Exactly.
And the recommendations that you write up.
Great minds think alike. Any other business?
I just had something about Aaron's Law. So that was played at my school. I watched the videos that day and I thought they were really good. The only thing that me and a couple people I know thought is there weren't really content warnings, and it is a very heavy topic. So I don't know if that's like in our jurisdiction to recommend that teachers do give that content warning before they do it. But I think it can be important because it can be triggering, and to just have zero warning is it kind of underscores
right.
what we're trying.
So all the teachers are supposed to review that is sent out, and it's in that document that I sent out. It says, watch this, be prepared for this. And they are supposed to let you guys know what you're going to be watching and the discussion that goes with it. Because you're right, they are heavy, but they're very, very informative. And, if it is triggering, there's a reason it's triggering. Correct. And so we need to make sure that we're looking out for those kids, and the guidance counselors are supposed to be on hand at the same time. So I appreciate you for telling me that, because that lets me know that I need to go back and make sure that the schools are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're not just showing up the day that the principal says that you're supposed to be teaching this and not be prepared for what's happening.
The same thing happened at my school. We watched the videos online, but there was really no indication to anyone that it could be triggering or just potentially I don't know, heavy.
Heavy, right. Yep. Thank you for that feedback, because it's not the way it's supposed to happen, and that I have work to do.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I've motioned all night, so I'll motion that we adjourn as well.
And do we have a second?
A second.
That was from Emma. All right. Reminder that the next meeting date is January 19 or February 16. I'm hoping we have this letter to look at and vote on by the 19th. And so that's the announcement for next time. And I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.